Hey, what's going on guys, Khraze here, welcome back to another Immortals Fenyx Rising video. Today, let's jump right in with the most important early unlocks that you absolutely must get your hands on, especially since these will make the early game that much easier and many of them you will eventually want to use even later on in the game. So let's jump right into it with all of the details, and as always, if you enjoyed this at any point, it would be super awesome if you left a like on it. Let's begin with some really awesome skills that you should definitely invest points into very early on, starting of course with my favorite, which is the glide boost. So this is going to let you speed up your gliding by a lot by using the sprint button when you're gliding. And since in the early game you're going to go into a ton of high places trying to just jump and glide to your destination, this is going to be the perfect fit for that. So not only does it make gliding that much more fun, but it will also consume less stamina than you would otherwise by just gliding the normal way. Another important one is the heavy lifting bracer upgrade. Now admittedly it does require another upgrade before this, but what this does is that it lets you pick the heavy boulders, making puzzle solving early on way easier. Now by default the big boulders and the big weights, you cannot lift them over your head, you can only push them, so that's pretty much it. This means that in puzzles where you kind of have to bring them through various hoops, it's going to be pretty difficult without this skill. So this is going to trivialize a ton of the puzzles, especially the ones in the open world. The next one I immediately invested some points into was the X sprint attack, and this is probably going to be the best opening ability that you're going to use both early on and well into the late game. So this is an amazing damage dealer and a great way to immediately apply stagger onto any target in the game, because once you connect it with a target, it causes this AoE explosion that throws the smaller targets on their back, and the bigger ones get interrupted, as well as have a ton of stagger applied to their stun bar. So definitely something that you should spam quite a lot. It doesn't require too much stamina to cast it, and all you need to do is just sprint towards the target and perform the X heavy attack. Of course from this point on it's a matter of choice, but you can also go with the attack dodge. Definitely useful because you're going to spend quite a bit of time in the air performing tricks, doing damage, so if there's an incoming enemy attack you will want to dodge that in time so that you can immediately jump back with some more damage. Moving on to the second one, let's talk about some really awesome mounts that you can unlock very early on in the game that will make traversal that much easier. This is an epic level 3 mount, by the way, so it is going to be one of the best in the game, and you can get it really close to your spawn point in the Valley of Eternal Springs. So by default, once you reach the Valley of Eternal Springs for the very first time, you will encounter this small group of fawns or deer right here on this side of the map. You can definitely go ahead and tame these, but just keep in mind that these are level 1, so this means they only have 1 row of stamina. They can be helpful, but yeah, they aren't going to be that useful later on in the game. What you will want to do instead is to head over directly south of the island on this part of the map right here, really close to the ocean. So it's going to be directly south of the Hall of the Gods that you would otherwise have to go for the main story, because here is where you will find a really awesome Tyrian mount. It kind of looks all purple with a little bit of accents of pink, but it is going to be extremely useful because this is a level 3. So once you reach over there, just be careful to go into a crouch mode and get close to it really slowly, because otherwise it can get scared and run away. It shouldn't be too difficult. Once you get close to it, simply press the mount button and you're going to be able to tame it, and from this point on it is absolutely yours. So this is a really amazing early on mount. I'm not really sure if there's any level 4 kind of mounts in the game, but level 3 seems to be the highest I've seen so far. So 3 rows of stamina, it should be extremely useful throughout the entire game, and you can get it pretty much from level 1. Moving on to number 3, let's talk about a really amazing armor set that you can also unlock early on. It's called the Stone Glare armor. It's made out of 2 pieces, but you can get these really early on basically the very first island that you spawn into. The first one is going to be on the northern part of the island. It's going to be right next to this observatory that you eventually reach anyway. So this is going to open up a fast travel point. This means you can come back to it at any point later on in the game, and once you're there there at the top of the observatory, what you will want to do is to actually jump down onto the side of the cliff up until you see this formation of pillars and this kind of like a structure thing with a room in the back. Here you will find 3 pressure plates that you need to kind of occupy at the same time to open up the chest behind them. So what you will want to do in this case is to use some of the nearby rocks, maybe even break them down and put them on all of these pressure plates. Once you do that, it's going to open up the door, you can go inside, and this is going to give you the first part of the set, which is going to be the headgear. More on that in just a little bit. The second one is going to be the armor piece, and you can find this on the southern island of the Clashing Rocks area. You can find it on this side of the map. So here you will find that there's this pressure plate you can stand on, and there is a small puzzle that you can complete using your tracking arrows. So just shoot your arrow, try to aim beneath that holographic wall over there, and then aim up really fast so that you can hit the target. Once you do that, it's going to open up the chest behind you, and you can go ahead and take the brand new armor piece. And congratulations, you just got one of the best armor pieces in the game early on. Now by default, this gives you a level 1 perk that refills 160% of a healing chunk. So that basically means more than 1.5 healing bars when you're performing a stun. And keep in mind that you're going to perform a ton of these because you have that X sprint attack unlocked that I've talked about previously. For the mask, you get a 52% damage for 6 seconds when stunning an enemy, and you're going to be doing that quite often. So free 50+ damage increase just because you're stunning enemies and you're doing that constantly. Also, the level 4 perks are going to be really amazing too. So on the headpiece, you're going to refill 200% of a stamina chunk when stunning an enemy. So basically you get 2 stamina bars by just stunning them, and this is going to be extremely useful even in the mid and end game. And meanwhile, the strong layer plate is going to give you additional 4 combo meters when stunning an enemy, so you can stack that combo meter even higher, get a higher score, and increase your damage by crazy numbers by just having this really early on in the game. Moving on to number 4, let's talk about some really awesome weapons you can get very early on in the game, starting with the Forbidden Labyrinth axe that you can get as soon as you reach the Valley of Springs for the very first time. So when you do that, you're going to realize that there's a small camp of enemies on this side of the road protecting a chest. I definitely recommend go ahead, take them down, it's not too hard. Once you do that, you're going to be able to open up the chest, and this is going to give you the Forbidden Labyrinth axe that has some really interesting perks. The first one is a 40% damage increase for 6 seconds on perfect parries, and if you upgrade it at level 4, it's going to give you an additional 50% stun with the axe counter attack, which is going to be very useful. The next one is going to be a one-handed sword called Departed Shade, and you can find it on this cliff edge slightly southwest of the Hall of the Gods. You can immediately jump in. There's like a big cyclops and a bunch of enemies protecting it, but once you do that, you can get the Departed Shade. And this is a really great early on sword because it gives you a 30% damage increase for 6 seconds on a perfect dodge, which is something that you will do constantly anyway, and you will have quite a big uptime on this damage increase. Also, at the level 4 upgrade, you get a perk that creates 2 stamina orbs on hit with the sword sprint attack, but obviously you will want that perk to be unlocked there too. The next one is going to be really close to this area, as a matter of fact, so this is just a little bit in the back of it, so directly south of the temple. Here is where you will find another epic chest that is protected by a bunch of enemies. It is in the middle of this monument, so what you will want to do is take down the enemies, and once you do that, you're going to be able to open it up and get the resistance bow that comes in with a really interesting perk. So charge shots inflict 150 stun and knocks back small enemies, which is extremely useful against the flying enemies like the harpies. They get really big stun damage onto them just because you're using the resistance, and at level 4 upgrade, it gives you another 40% chance to freeze enemies for 5 seconds, but only on headshots. So really overall amazing weapons to have really early on. this brings us to the final point on the list, which is going to be about your Phoenix bird called the Phosphor. And this is something actually that you unlock through a quest, but it does come in with some other perks later down the line that you can invest some points into. But the best early unlock for it is going to be called the Phosphor of Lit Cinders, that increases the bird's damage by 150%, essentially transforming it from a simple utility kind of skill to a huge damage dealer that will carry you all the way into the middle of the game and even beyond that, since the bird can also stagger and stun enemies with its attack. So there's going to be a ton of upgrades like these for the Phosphor, but this one you get it from its quest line. So as soon as you get it in the early game, it's going to open up a multi-part quest line that eventually ends on this side of the Valley of Eternal Springs. I'm not going to spoil anything, like there's a ton of cool stuff in this quest, there's even a big boss fight, but eventually at the end of it you get this 150% damage increase with the Phosphor of Lit Cinders, which also comes attached to this really awesome cool looking skin. And by the way, speaking of skins, you also get 2 additional skins in the meantime. At the end of it you get the wings of Icarus, which is basically like the flaming wings that you see me using in this footage. It looks really amazing. And then there's also the wings of Zeus that you get early on in the quest line. Like I pretty much think that it's the second quest in the line that you eventually get. But this is it with the best early unlocks in Immortals Fenyx Rising. Of course, there's going to be a ton more coming here on this channel, so if you want to see more on that, leave a like on this video, subscribe and activate that notification bell, and I'll see you guys in the next one.